sometimes people think they know better for you than you know for yourself.
That's true.
Right?
That is true.
There's sometimes people feel as though they have a better plan for your life. Right? Right? I've been guilty. I've been guilty. Right? I remember when Kirsten went to college, I told Kirsten, there's some things I ain't paying for. I'm just not going to pay for it. Right? I'm not going to pay for it. Right? But Daddy, I want to major in this, I want to major. Oh, I ain't paying for it. Then I started getting her classes together, and I started putting her classes together or whatever. She just had a breakdown. She just said, you don't let me do it, you won't let. And I said, and I got angry. I did. And I said, well, you handle it. You handle it. Right? But the truth is, I had to come to grips with the fact that my baby was growing up. And she had the responsibility of making decisions for her life as well as owning the consequences. Right? Now, the hard part for me was going to be allowing her to walk in the consequences of the actions that I may have known, because she had to learn. She had to grow. And if and being able to stand back and watch her suffer. Watch her struggle. See,
were you able to do that?
Sometimes and sometimes not.
I appreciate your transparency.
Sometimes not. No. Sometimes there were some things I just couldn't
help it.
I just couldn't help it. I couldn't help it.
No matter what.
I couldn't help. Right? There were some things I said I wasn't going to do for my boy. Right? I said I wasn't going to do it. Right? But guess what I did? I stroked the check. Right? I did it. Said I wasn't going to do it, but I did it. Right? But then there were other things that I allowed them to be blessed by the experience of the suffering. I found out that sometimes we want to help edit people's life, not necessarily for them, but for us.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You dropped everything, Miss Grace. You all right? Now I'm over here guilty now. Miss Grace, you
Stop looking at me.
Miss Grace dropped everything over there.
Yes, indeed. But the truth is,
I know.
But the truth is, sometimes we want, and what we'll do is, and we'll use Gestapo tactics. We'll go hard. You're going to end up on the street. You're going to end up destitute. You're not going to succeed. You're going to be a failure. We scare them, don't we? We give them the catastrophe. You know, we go hard, right? We go hard. Why? Because we want them to do what we want them to do.
I thought I was the only one.
No, you're not.
I'm just talking about the word right now, Joe. I'm just talking about that. But that's what Bildad did. Bildad wants to tell Job about his end result, not fully understanding that Job is right in the midst of God's plan.
And knowing him from the beginning.
Well, see, that's what Lisa said Thursday, right? On Thursday, Lisa, she couldn't let that go, right? She couldn't let that go. The fact of the matter is, Bildad, Lisa's words, must not have really known his friend, right? And the truth is, in some way, shape, or form, he didn't know his friend. Just like sometimes I don't know my children, right? Just like sometimes my mother didn't know me. She didn't know the version of me that God was developing, that God was building, right? Y'all know in relationships we change all the time, right? And sometimes the people who we think we know, we don't see them for what God is doing in their life. We look at them from a template, an ideal that we've created in the past, expecting them to continue to operate according to that, not giving them the flexibility and latitude that God gives them in growth. When I look, actually, Kirsten had made a decision that for the, it's public, she put it on Facebook, it's public, so I can say it, right? She made a decision for this year, 2016, that she is going to, I don't want to say stop wearing makeup, but she's going to reduce the amount of makeup she's wearing, right? She said, I'm gonna let my face heal. I'm gonna let my face rest, right? And I said, bless your heart. That's wonderful. Wonderful, right? But what I didn't know is that there were some inner struggles she was having because of her posture of being used to wearing makeup, right? I didn't know that there are, and it was interesting for me thinking through this, right? But there are avenues in our life that we take that actually can become habit forming, right? We begin to do it, and that begins to become a part of that thing that we do begins to become a part of who we are, and it begins to be the mask that covers up the blemishes,
Exactly.
right? And then it really all becomes about the cover-up, right? Right. So I started thinking about that, and I applauded her for it. But what I wrote on her Facebook page was that I'm proud of her, and I wanted her to know that she's just as beautiful as the first day I laid eyes on her 21 years ago. In her natural beauty. Right? Just as gorgeous. Right? Because I want her to realize she's beautiful. But what I also had to realize is that in her growing, beauty means something different than it did from a little girl than to a 21-year-old young woman. Am I making sense?
Yes.
And I had to be honest with myself and say, I need to see her now as a woman. My children grown, except my 7-year-old, right? My children they're adults, and they're dealing with adult stuff now, right? Y'all, isn't it hard to see your children
Yes.
differently sometimes,
Yes.
right? Even when you're born, even when you're blessed to be born with a grown man, right? Grown man at 10, right? Even when you're blessed to have a very mature child, right? It's still difficult sometimes to see your child differently than they really are. To see what God's doing in their life. But that's not just your children, it's also people around you.
I think the same thing applies to the children.
You better believe it. It's hard for children, you are absolutely correct. It is hard for children, I think it's some of the funniest stuff in the world to see how children react after they get older, to see how children react to the adult things that parents have to deal with.
That's
Right?
right.
Hey, Mark, it's just some stuff you don't need to know, right?
That's right.
But Mark, we all adults, right?
That's right.
Right. My children, sometimes they can't handle when I talk about certain things. They go, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you? I said, we're all adults. We're all adults. You want to be treated like an adult, right? It's sometimes, guess what? It is difficult to see people differently than the model that you develop.
That's right.
Right? My prayer for us is that we can grow to help people live out the truth of who they are, the reality of who they are, right? Understanding that some of their walk, some of their activities won't be in line with God's will. You just won't. And guess what? Although it's still sin, right? We are not the convictor of sin. Can we allow God to be God? And we just be a grace agent to help support people where we can? Sometimes allowing God to be God means you got to take a step back and say, guess what? But by the grace of God, go I. The truth is, if Bildad had taken a look at his own life, he may have been able to approach this situation a little differently. Right? I believe it was Matthew the Matthew the 10th chapter, I believe it is. The Word of God says, you're so consumed with the speck in your brother's eye that you can't see the log in your own. You focused on the wrong thing. You're so focused on what your brother's going through that you can't even see the stuff you're going through in your own life. Right? Let's begin to look at our own lives and begin to try to figure out in what ways can we be better? In what ways can we be, hey Dad, in what ways can we be better? In what ways can we be different? In what ways can we support our friends, support our family, support our neighbors? And sometimes that means, in accountability, I must be truthful with them concerning the activities of their life, but never judgmental. Now, what do I mean by that? Judgment is an attitude of the heart. Accountability is for the benefit of another. I encourage you by telling you that which you cannot see.